Good afternoon, all. Welcome to December's Network Tech Talk. It's so great seeing everyone this afternoon. For those of you who have not attended in the past, Central Maine Network Tech Talk is a monthly event where founders and leaders share advice on how they overcame challenges, capitalized on their target market, and developed their product, providing you with actionable insight for your own products and processes. For more information, you can find us on Facebook and online at centralmaine.org under our Tech Night tab. I'd like to thank our sponsors for this afternoon's conversation. This free event is presented by Central Maine Growth Council and is sponsored by CGI, Valley Beverage, Thomas College's Harold Alfon Institute for Business Innovation, and Bricks Co-working and Innovation Space. In addition, I'd like to say hello to folks watching remotely at home or from their office. This Tech Talk is being streamed live and will be available for later viewing on our YouTube channel. This afternoon's Tech Talk is presented by Colby College's Davis Institute for Artificial Intelligence with Amanda Stent, the Davis Institute's inaugural director. In this Network Tech Talk, Amanda will discuss how the Davis Institute is preparing students for a future where AI is transforming industries, careers, and modes of discovery, creativity, and scholarship, and training faculty and students in the use of AI and the creation of new systems and capabilities. For those not familiar with the Davis Institute for Artificial Intelligence at Colby is the first cross-disciplinary institute for artificial intelligence at a liberal arts college. And with that, I would like to introduce you all to Amanda Stent, who will be taking it from here. Thank you for joining us today, Amanda.
Thank you so much, Sabrina, and I am so excited to be here with all of you today. I'm going to share my screen. So what I'm going to be talking about today is in two chunks. The first section is what is artificial intelligence and why should you care about it? Why should we all care about it? And I'll take questions at the end of that chunk. And then there will be a second section specifically about the Davis Institute for AI and how it relates to all of you in the local area. And I will take questions again at the end of that section. This talk is the same talk that I give to Colby students and faculty in different groups and that we are incorporating into Colby classes. So this is one to give you an insight directly into how we're going to be working with Colby students, staff, and faculty to incorporate AI. So let's talk about what artificial intelligence is and why you might care about it. Artificial intelligence is a kind of a funny field. It's the discipline of making computers demonstrate behaviors that we think are intelligent. For example, seeing or hearing or writing or drawing or thinking or learning. Because this definition focuses on isolated behaviors, you do not have to worry that there is going to be a robot tomorrow that takes over the world and suddenly becomes smarter than you. If the singularity happens next year, I will buy everyone on this call a cup of coffee. And you can hold me to it because it's being recorded. So we don't have to worry about that. Instead, we just talk about so-called narrow AIs, that's programs that exhibit one kind of intelligence, seeing or hearing or walking or drawing. Let's think about how AI relates to us in our daily lives. So here we are sleeping in our beds, and then we wake up, and what's the first thing we all do? We look at our smartphone. The smartphone has the alarm. We wake up, we look at the smartphone. The smartphone has multiple AIs inside it, including personal assistant, if you use it, and the machine learning algorithm that sends your email to spam or not spam, and many other artificial intelligences inside your smartphone. So then you check your email, you sigh, you get out of bed, and you tell your smart speaker, your Echo or your Alexa to play the radio or turn on your smart TV. Now we're 5 minutes into your day and you've already interacted with at least 3 AIs. So then you take your shower, you eat your breakfast, you watch the news, and then you go to leave your house. Many of us have smart doorbells, so the house sees you leaving and it talks to your smart thermostat, which adjusts the temperature down. So now we're up to at least 5 and you're only half an hour into your day. Then you get in your car. And increasingly, our cars have AIs in them to help us not bump into other people and do lane drift detection and help us park. And so then you get to work. And now increasingly, we have smart badges that recognize our patterns of movement throughout the day and monitor us and feed that information to the company. So before you've even started work, you've already interacted with probably 10 or more AIs. And that is every single day. There is no unexamined life anymore. Quite often when people hear AI, they think machine learning. So machine learning is a subfield of computer science that studies algorithms for developing computer systems that can improve automatically by analyzing data. When many people say AI, they do mean machine learning, but machine learning is simply one set of techniques and tools that we can use to develop AIs. Another set of techniques and tools that we have used to develop AIs in the past is writing rules. So when we write rules, the human tells the computer directly what to do to behave intelligently. And when we use machine learning, we give the computer many examples of intelligence, humans doing intelligent behaviors, like humans identifying objects in a picture. And we ask the computer to learn that from the data. And this is the predominant method for building AIs today. This is the primary method. This method for developing AIs directly contributes to the recent successes of AI. However, it requires very fancy big computers. So it was not really possible before we had computers with GPUs in them, GPUs designed for playing games on computers, and very useful for AI. And it also depends on having a lot of data, which was not really possible until about 10, 15 years ago. Another question that people ask, especially at Colby, is how do AI and machine learning relate to computer science? Why are we doing an AI institute if AI and machine learning are really just part of computer science? Well, a core concept in computer science is that of an algorithm. An algorithm is a procedure for solving a problem that is guaranteed to stop. It's not going to run forever, and it's guaranteed to give you the correct solution to the problem. But how can we define an algorithm for walking well? I don't have a set of rules for that or or procedure that I can define. So when we talk about tasks that are hard for humans to construct rules for, or things that people can do, but for which we can't think of any algorithms, that tends to be where we develop AI solutions. And because that's what we think of as requiring intelligence. Another question people ask is, how do AI and machine learning relate to data science? So data science is the discipline of extracting actionable insights from structured or unstructured data. Let's say that you're looking at a bunch of customer feedback for your product at your company. And this feedback has come in over 6 months, and you process it. You say you have net promoter scores. And so you look at the curve, you look at the graph of the net promoter scores, and then you look at the comments associated with them, and then you extract the actionable insight that you need to improve your pricing structure. That's data science. If in order to get there, you run an algorithm over the user comments that produces a word cloud or that tells you something about the other companies that are mentioned in the comments, that's you using an AI to do your data science. Because the dominant approach to building AIs today is machine learning, and machine learning requires a lot of data, most of AI requires data science to clean and process that data. But also, data science increasingly uses AI, as when you run a natural language processing program over the comments that your customers have given you to identify the competing products that they're talking about. So it's really either a beneficial or a disastrous feedback cycle between AI and data science. And we need to care about these relationships, because whether you are a computer scientist or a data scientist or a product manager or an engineer or a customer service representative, we all get up in the morning, turn on our cell phones, use our smart speakers, use our smart TVs, get in our smart cars. So we are all surrounded by AI every day. Speaking of that, AI is big business. Now, I've been doing AI a long time. And when I started in AI, it was mostly just in a research lab. So we would write scientific papers and we would do our research, but AI wasn't really making a lot of money. That changed after we got the GPUs and the large quantities of data from the internet. And now AI is growing exponentially. According to Fortune, the worldwide AI market was $47 billion in 2020. and it's expected to grow to $360 billion by 2028. That is a huge growth. Now, that growth projection should come with caveats. In the 60s, when AI first started, the military, DARPA, funded a lot of AI research, specifically in translation. So the computer translating from one language like French to another language like English. And when that bet did not pay off, there was what is called an AI winter. So for about 15 years, nobody funded any developments in AI. And then in the 90s, we saw some successes in speech recognition and expert systems, so AI for medical diagnosis, AI for prediction. And then those didn't really work out, and there was, the dot-com bust. And again, there was an AI winter. And now we're in another boom. So this boom bust cycle, like this gold rush type of cycle, may continue to happen with AI, but many experts, and I would agree, think that this time around is really different, because it has never before been the case that 40, 50 million Americans have smart speakers driven by AI in their homes, and more than 150 million Americans have smart TVs in their homes, and every single one of us who drives a car has AI in that car. So this time it is really different. So how can you get in on this big business? Well, AI offers big benefits no matter what your business is. Company executives often order the benefits in this way. First, creating better experiences for customers. Second, improving our decision-making and business planning. And third, achieving operational efficiencies. But I am here to tell you that that is exactly the wrong order. The easiest and best way for a business to derive value from using AI is in terms of achieving operational efficiencies and then improving decision-making. And the hardest way to obtain value from using AI is in creating better experiences for customers. It's really hard, and it's very risky because you are then dealing with people's personal information. Some ways in which AI can be useful for achieving operational efficiencies that are very worth considering. AI can be of enormous help in detecting fraud and security issues. So whether it's customers claiming credit card theft when it's not really true, or hacks on your infrastructure, AI can be very useful in detecting those. Another place, frankly, the place where I've seen AI be the most useful is in extracting, transforming, and loading data. So every business that I know of has to process invoices. I bet your business has to process invoices. Those invoices may be written by hand, they're in forms. AI can be very useful in ingesting that data and converting it into a form that you can easily process using Excel. So, which brings me to my next point. AI is very hard to do right. So we see these big increases in global market for AI, but most of those are with a very small number of companies. Of the companies investigating AI, only 25%, according to PricewaterhouseCoopers earlier this year, have successful AI deployments. 76% of those organizations are barely breaking even on their AI investments, and I actually think that's an overstatement. I think many of those organizations are net loss on their AI investments today. Why might this be? Because companies fail to estimate appropriately the costs and the timelines for integrating AI, in addition to making the wrong prioritization of how AI can be useful for their business. In my experience in industry across telecommunications, internet services, and finance, I've seen these mistakes several times. First, a company may pick the wrong way to use AI in their business. So they decide to layer on a chatbot as an adjunct to their customer service. And they hire a vendor to do this. Customers hate the chatbot, nobody uses it, everyone presses 000, and the company is locked into paying this vendor for years. Second, they grossly underestimate the time and cost to integrate the AI. The upfront development costs for AI solutions are higher than for traditional solutions. So you may be over here in year 0 with your costs in the red, below your revenues in the green. And then somewhere in that year 0, you're like, I'm going to apply AI to this. And right away, you have to hire more expensive people. You have to change your infrastructure. You have to reorient the way you process data. And all of a sudden, your costs are higher than your revenue. And it can take 1 to 3 years for an existing product or 3 to 5 years for a new product for that curve to flip. So you're in the green again. So companies frequently underestimate this. And even in steady state, your maintenance costs for AI solutions will be higher than for non-AI solutions. And the third mistake that companies make is that they don't understand that they really have to change the way they operate in order to use AI. When you are incorporating AI into your organization, you typically have to have a thorough critical inspection of your computing infrastructure, the way you process data, and the application and workflows that you use. These in turn require changes in the way that you hire and train staff. And what your staff have to understand and your infrastructure has to be reoriented towards is that AI is not guaranteed to deliver a correct solution every time. So your company's method of operating has to take that into account. You can't just turn it over to the AI and walk away. You always have to have a human there managing what's happening. So AI is very hard to do right. And we have seen that recently. Many of you read or heard about Zillow's Zestimate debacle. Zillow invested years and dozens of people in building their Zestimates. So you could go and see how much your home value is worth. That was a machine learning AI solution. They then built a side business where they bought houses based on this estimate with the goal of flipping them and selling them for more. But the model was wrong. And they have lost millions and millions of dollars and had to lay off a whole part of their business just the last couple of months. Another way in which we see that AI is hard to do right, there were thousands of AI experts when COVID-19 started who volunteered their time to try to build AI tools to catch COVID. And there have been multiple analyses of the return on that investment, and none of them really helped. Sure, machine learning was somewhat helpful in sequencing the genome for COVID, but apart from that, none of these interventions really helped. None of the fancy solutions for detecting whether passengers coming in on a plane were more or less likely to have COVID or how COVID would spread, nothing like that. The other thing I would say is that AI is hard to do responsibly. When businesses start with saying that they will apply AI to their customers and to the client experience, they frequently forget that that means collecting data from their customers. And when you collect data from customers, you are likely to build biased and less than effective solutions. In addition, that means that you are turning your customers into your product. So we all know the saying, if you're not the customer, you're not the product. If you're not paying for the thing, then you are effectively the product. If you use Google solutions without paying for them, then Google is collecting data from you and selling that to advertisers, and you are the product. But what we forget today is even if you are paying for it, even if you are the customer, you are still the product. So let's go back to the ways in which you interact with AI every day. Perhaps you installed one of those smart Ring doorbells. You may have then read earlier this year that Amazon allows its employees, some of its employees and law enforcement to collect and view the image and video data from your doorbell without your permission. And you're paying for that doorbell. I've been to Home Depot and seen how much it costs. And until recently, they resold the data from the doorbell to Facebook and Google. You can go now and check out their terms of service, and they say, we do not sell your personal data to other people. And in the very next paragraph, they say we share your data with third parties, including third parties who use it for advertising. Now let's think about AI in the workplace. Perhaps a vendor has approached you about using AI hiring tools. They can make your hiring processes so efficient and so fair by you turning over all your applicants' data to them and your history of hiring decisions. And then, you don't need so many HR people. Well, how does their AI solution work? Their AI solution extracts features about the applicants from their CVs, such as where they went to school and how long is their career history. And they may try to obfuscate some of that information, for example, replacing the name of the college with the ranking of the college nationally or the location of the college. And then they take the history of hiring decisions made by your company and other companies, And they use those to train a model that takes the information from the CVs and says how likely any company is to hire this person. Is that solution more fair than your human HR people? I doubt it, because it's just trained on a bunch of more or less biased hiring decisions historically. And worse than that, most of us here on this call do not have very big companies, and those vendors also work with very large companies. So now your hiring decisions are based on the hiring decisions of much bigger companies who may include your competitors. This is why it is really important to think when we use AI, especially when we apply it to human beings, about whether it is necessary for us to do that and how we can do it in a way that prioritizes human beings, their rights, and their privacy. So let's talk about how you can succeed with AI. First, you should start with your business needs. AI should serve your business's needs. Your business does not exist to serve AI. So when a vendor approaches you, the first question you should ask yourself is, are they approaching me because this will serve my business needs? Is it going to help me with my financial plan? Is it going to help me win over my competitors? Is it going to give my business unique value? Or are they really approaching me because I will serve their business needs, which is to make money by selling sometimes actual AI snake oil? So start with your business needs and think about those first. Second, if you decide to go ahead with an AI solution to a problem, you need to understand and implement what's called machine learning ops. So many of us who work with software or whose companies are oriented around delivering software understand software operations, that you need to make sure that the systems that you have are tested and maintained and that there's service for them. We all understand if Windows has a bug, Microsoft delivers an update and we need to update our Windows for it to keep working. That's basic software operations. For machine learning operations, it's a little more complicated because you need to make sure that your computing infrastructure is set up right, that your data processing infrastructure is set up correctly and consistently, and that the application layer is right. And that, again, means changes in how you hire and train your personnel. And it means, in addition, that your AI solution is going to change as you change with it. So the AI solution needs to be continually kept up to date. When you first deploy an AI solution, it will be slightly less accurate. And then as you get more expert at using it, your clients get more expert at using it, and your employees get more expert at using it, it's learning. So over time, the interaction between you and the ML solution will change versus what it was initially. And that change will continue to happen as long as you are using it. And this is really different from the way that we think about software and hardware solutions before. Like, you get a printer, it's a printer. It's not going to change in how it prints as long as you have it. But when you have an AI solution, it will change and you will change and it will change and you will change. And that's what we have to take care of with ML ops. And the third way in which you can succeed with AI is really to put your humans first. When you're using AI to make decisions about humans, always have a human in the loop. So I will pause here and take questions about this, and then we will talk a little bit about the Davis Institute for AI. Any questions? I think you can unmute yourselves.
Amanda, thank you so much. Really insightful, and thank you for kind of that macro level overview as well. Touching on selection bias that you mentioned, I believe briefly, what other biases exist or can be problematic within artificial intelligence?
Sure. Some of the biases that can come about when you use AI come from the data. If you have historically always had customers who are from Maine, then they're going to talk about Maine locations and they're going to have Maine accents. So I work in natural language processing, so this is going to be a natural language processing example. Now you grow your business and suddenly you have customers from Southern California. Well, they aren't going to talk like your customers from Maine. And you aren't going to have any data initially from your customers from Southern California. So that's a lack of data bias or gap that's going to introduce problems for your customers from Southern California initially. And people often don't realize that what's not in the data can be as important or more important than what is in the data. A second type of bias that can be introduced is in fact related to what is in the data and how data especially data that is found on the internet, just data that you scraped, will reflect our human biases. That's how we ended up, for example, with the Google computer vision algorithm labeling pictures of people who are Black as apes and gorillas. Not that people who are Black are like that, but that some humans talk about other human beings in that terrible way. A third type of bias that can come from your AI solution arises not from what's not in the data or what is in the data, but from the way that you deploy the solution. So if you deploy a solution partially or incorrectly, for example, if you have an ML solution that you know is 85% correct, 85% of the time it tells you a correct thing and 15% of the time it tells you an incorrect thing, and you deploy that in a complete automation scenario, then 15% of the time it's going to be wrong. And if you then feed that data back into the system, over time, it will become more and more wrong, and you will not even notice because you are not doing any human checks. So what's not in the data, what is in the data, and what you do with the data, the labels, are three ways in which bias can be introduced into your AI solution.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And I guess I'm just pausing for a minute, but curious, I think your second to last slide there discussed the interconnection of artificial intelligence and machine learning or ML ops. And I feel like we often hear these two terms used kind of fluidly together. But what are some of the differences between machine learning and artificial intelligence?
Sure. So machine learning is a set of techniques. It's not a set of solutions. Artificial intelligence is a set of solutions, but we often use those machine learning techniques to develop the artificial intelligence. For example, we use machine learning to develop speech recognition that's in your smart speaker, or object detection that your car uses to see the speed limit signs and change them on your dashboard. So machine learning is a set of techniques, and AI is a set of solutions.
Awesome. Thank you.
Any other questions at this point?
Hi, thank you very much for that. This might be a little bit out of the scope of what you were talking about, and it may even be the machine learning rather than the AI. Did it affect business? And because this was a outside of business project, this was a nonprofit, as a matter of fact. You mentioned when they were doing COVID-19 research for AI. What about projects that were like folding at home? Did that make any impact? Did that bring any kind of awareness that brought that type of thing more into business, or did anyone catch on more after that became really popular? The popularity spiked at one point. I know that's about all I can track for it.
I think I missed the critical phrase in your question. You said something at home?
It's a project called Folding at Home. It uses
either folding at home. Yes.
Okay,
yes.
You're aware of that.
Yeah.
Did that make a big impact at all into anybody, at least in either business or individuals, understanding more about AI, or bring it to the scene more?
Yeah, sure. So the protein folding at home was not really an AI thing. Those are algorithms. So we know that if we run them, they will give us a correct answer, but they can take a very, 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 very long time to run. So you wouldn't want to it's not the sort of thing where you get a cup of coffee and come back and it has the answer. So with the protein folding, what they were doing is using other people's computers, volunteer computers, to actually run the algorithm to speed it up, because you can speed it up by breaking the proteins down and like running it in parallel. What does involve AI is when you were able to loan your computer for searching for extraterrestrials. You were able to loan your computer for basically astronomy applications, and they collected so much data through both of these volunteer efforts that they will literally be running the science for more than a decade. So those worked.
Okay, that's great to hear.
Yeah, and other ways.
I've been involved in both, so
great.
Yeah, it's great to know.
Yeah, and other ways in which citizen science is influencing AI is, for example, I'm really into birds, and Maine has some very pretty birds, and people birders have been writing down their bird observations for centuries. Now, modern computers are not really good at recognizing handwriting from the 1700s, But if humans can write down, look at the pages that have been taken pictures of and scanned in, and then write down what's written there, then we have been able to collect bird migration data going back more than 150 years. And that's very useful for biologists. So, and in addition, those transcriptions have been used to train machine learning models so that the computer can start to read the historic text itself. So volunteers, humans providing data to train AIs and humans providing data for data science are hugely useful. And most of the time, when you talk to a company and they say that they can solve a very hard AI problem, what they're really doing is they have humans somewhere less expensive than here, who they are initially using to solve the problem. And then over time, they hope to automate it through machine learning. I'll just give you one example. Travel and expense. If you have T&E reports, your employees upload whatever receipt they got from someplace, it's creased, it's folded, goodness knows where the information is on it. Big expense processing vendors would say they were using AI to do that. And then someone happened to be on Amazon Mechanical Turk, which is a place where humans can do piecework, little bits of work for very small amounts of money, 5 cents, 10 cents. And they discovered that this very large vendor was taking the receipts from its clients and posting them on Amazon Mechanical Turk, where the humans were extracting the information, not the AI at all. Now, that's funny until we realized that people's unredacted names and credit card numbers were in those receipts. But part of being a critical and informed user of AI tools is learning to recognize when something is too good to be true and asking the critical questions of the suppliers who are making those promises.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Other questions?
Can you guys sorry. Better? Can you hear me now? Wow. Sorry, everyone. Sorry, everybody. Too much technology here. I wanted to ask you a question about ethicists and how you envision using ethicists as you're teaching about developing AI models. And I just thought maybe you could speak a little bit about that, because you're a liberal arts college. So, and maybe this is something you'll cover in your next phase. And again, apologies everyone for my echoing.
That's a great question, Susan. Thank you for asking that. I will talk a bit about that in a minute or so, but let me just answer it now. When a technology company starts to develop an AI solution, or any company, a healthcare company, but it's technologists who are developing the AI solution. Too often, historically, it's been the technologist saying, I see the problem, I will develop the solution, and I will give it to you. And I am so techno-positive that the solution I develop is definitely going to be fine. Like I can see all these potential benefits to the solution. I'm just going to talk about the benefits because I'm excited and I can do this, the computer can do this, it's cool. I have been there. I am the guilty party here. And so the technologists developed a solution for a problem that is not really the problem that needs to be addressed, and without thinking about the potential negative impacts. Now, instead, if that technologist at the beginning of the project, talks with the domain experts and brings in philosophers or sociologists or anthropologists, people who think about societal impacts and think about ethics, then that technologist will have really good partners for thinking creatively, both about the benefits and the risks and the actual nature of the solution. Let me give you an example. About 8 years ago, I went to a talk by a well-known venture capitalist who was super excited about this company he had funded, which had developed a mosquito shooting laser at the cost of about $1 million. And they were really keen. They had shown that, if you pointed the laser at the mosquito, you could kill the mosquito. And it was so cool, and they were just totally in love with it. And mosquito nets prevent all the mosquitoes from biting you, and they cost about 10 cents each. So that was a group of technologists with a solution in search of a problem who had not appropriately considered the cost-benefit analysis of what they were doing. Let me give you another example. Some of you have heard of Tay. So Tay was a chatbot that Microsoft researchers put online. They trained this chatbot using all kinds of data from the internet, and they set the chatbot up so that every time someone chatted with it, it would take that conversation and learn from it. And then they put it on the web. And within 72 hours, I think, they had to take it down again, because in their excitement, and it was legitimate excitement, very cool work, they had failed to consider or consult with any social scientists or philosophers about the ways in which humans will abuse each other. And so people took the opportunity to have very racist, sexist, homophobic, everything you can think of conversations with this chatbot, which learned very rapidly to be a very horrible thing. And frankly, if they had consulted with a kindergarten teacher, they would have, anybody who has experience of how humans operate. I think this solipsism, this over narrow focus is not unique to computer scientists, but computer scientists may be fairly unique in their solutionism. I can solve it without thinking about all the things that surround the solution. Yeah, so with that lead in, and I'm happy to answer more questions later, let's talk about the Davis Institute for AI. The Davis Institute for AI is generously funded by Andrew Davis, who is a Colby alum and very involved with Colby. He also funded the Davis Connects, which some of you probably have worked with. The Davis Institute for AI's mission is to establish Colby as a nationally recognized center of excellence in interdisciplinary, human-centered AI teaching and research. Let's break that down a little bit. Interdisciplinary means avoiding the solutionism, starting every project with the person or team who is the end user and other stakeholders, as well as the technologists. And human-centered means prioritizing human needs and rights and interests over what the computer is capable of doing. And then teaching and research pertains to Colby's core mission of education and scholarship. So the values for the Institute are first to examine and improve the social and ethical implications of AI and machine learning. Second, to collaborate across fields, there's that interdisciplinary again. To solve the world's most pressing problems, there's that human-centered again. To set the standard with faculty who conduct research and teach students to be tool builders and tool users. Many of us are AI tool users, so we can apply, for example, computer vision or speech recognition or machine learning to our own businesses, but we don't necessarily need to be able to build it. We need to understand it and apply it, but we don't need to be able to build it. And then some of us will be tool builders. We will be the people designing the AI solutions of the future. And finally, use artificial intelligence as a means to improve the human condition. So in the first half of the talk, I may have come across a little pessimistic. That's because too often we hear so much happy joy about AI. So I wanted to unveil some of the risks, but I am optimistic, and I think we can use artificial intelligence as a means to improve the human condition. The Davis Institute for AI stakeholders are, first of all, Colby faculty and staff, Colby students, and Colby alumni, and then Colby teaching and research partners, Colby corporate partners, including some of you, and Colby and government and nonprofits, both local, regional, national, and global, because there are Colby faculty who are working with governments and nonprofits and companies around the world. We have a set of 5-year goals. I've picked 2 here to prioritize to this audience. The first is that 25% of Colby graduates across 80% of departments will have pursued an AI curricular pathway by the time of graduation. That might mean they've done a CS major with an AI concentration, or a data science minor with AI courses, or they've taken a hands-on introduction to artificial intelligence, a data governance and ethics course, and maybe a Jan Plan course or some other course in their major where they have applied AI. These people will be empowered to be AI-informed product managers, data scientists, analysts, and engineers. They will be the people you want to hire who can understand AI and make critical decisions and well-informed decisions about how and when and where to use it. And the second 5-year goal that I wanted to present here is that it is our hope with the Halloran Institute for Entrepreneurship to have 5 interdisciplinary AI-focused Colby affiliated startups. That's startups coming from the work of Colby faculty, students, or staff, and 25 new interdisciplinary AI Colby partnerships, which could be partnerships with companies, nonprofits, or government agencies in Maine and beyond. I will give you an example from Scotland, where there's a city in Scotland called Dundee, and it was a very economically depressed city. And they set out with the goal of recruiting a critical mass of game programming companies, and they succeeded and became a center of excellence for game programming. And through this way, improved the economic outcomes for their population. We would like to do that for Maine, to help people who grow up in Maine to stay here and to succeed here through their education and then their employment. And in this, we are working with the Root Institute from Portland. What really would be great if at the end of 5 years, Waterville, not just Colby, but also Waterville and the Kennebec area are known for work in AI and AI companies. And then, of course, some of you may be wondering how you can become involved or interact with the Davis Institute for AI. Well, I've been in this job 2 months and 8 days. So a lot of what I'm going to say right now is coming up soon, but we will be having an external newsletter. It'll come out monthly, and you can subscribe to that newsletter. Right now, the way you subscribe is by contacting me. Pretty soon we'll have a sign up form on our brand new to be built website. And we will be having external talks that we will live stream. And after COVID, you can probably attend in person. So we're planning 3 a semester. These will be speakers who are, some of them AI technologists, and some of them people who understand and can speak critically to AI. So for example, in the spring, we plan to have a speaker talking about the future of work in an AI-infused world. Another speaker talking about how AI can be used to analyze historical documents. And another speaker talking about how machine learning can be used in the natural sciences to model environment and climate change. And another way, through those 2 means you can become informed. Oh, we also have social media handles. We have a Twitter handle, we'll be on Instagram. The other way you can interact with the Davis Institute for AI is to become involved. We would welcome you to propose projects for students to hire Colby students as interns or as full-time employees. And here, the Davis Institute for AI is working very closely with Davis Connects. So if it's student projects, you have data set, you have a problem, please feel free to contact me directly. But if it's hiring interns or full-time employees, then I would suggest you can contact me, but I will put you in touch with Davis Connects, and we are working closely together. And I have had 20 or so discussions with companies over the last 2 months, some of whom are in the local area about how they can collaborate with Colby. I almost feel like Colby does not have enough students for all the interest that there is. So that's my brief introduction to the Davis Institute for AI. The website is here, and the website will be changing dramatically over the next month, and then there will be a sign-up link for a newsletter. But you are always welcome to email me, and I'm happy to have conversations. And I was invited to come to the co-working space, and I'm really looking forward to seeing some of you there also. So, offered to show me around there coming up. So I'm happy to take more questions, anything you want to ask. I realized at the beginning I didn't say about my background. I will just say that I started my career at a university. I then was in industry for 14 years at 3 different companies, and I have just taken a sharp right turn and come back to a university. So I understand what it's like to try to build an AI first company, and I understand how difficult and challenging that can be, as well as how exciting that can be when you really start to see the transformation. And I'm hopeful that many of you can go straight to seeing the transformation and the exciting and skip over some of the mistakes that I and other people have made. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Amanda. That was really wonderful. And welcome again to Waterville, being new to the job. With regards to mentioning the Scotland case model, some of that gaming, just curious, is there a preferred language, program language within AI, Java, etc.?
Yeah.
What has it been like historically? What is it today? And
Yeah.
that is expected to change. Where do we see it going?
Yeah, great question. So, you know, computer scientists, you know how some of us like different kinds of fashion, like some of us still want to wear bell bottoms, some of us want to wear boots, some of us want to wear lots of jewelry. That's how programming languages are to computer scientists. Every programming language does so it's the same basic things, but people get these like, I prefer this programming language and no other. So today, and for the past, probably 7-8 years, Python is the de facto programming language of choice for machine learning. If you're going to be building machine learning based AI, it's going to be Python. Inside Python, you might hear words like TensorFlow, PyTorch. Those are both parts of Python. However, that's the technologist solution. In the natural sciences, they very often use R, the natural and social sciences, and R is a terrible language to try to search on the internet for, gotta say, but a really good language also for doing machine learning. If your approach to building AI is not directly machine learning, then you have a lot more choices. So when I was a graduate student, the two programming languages of choice were Lisp and Prolog, both very different programming languages from Python. It does change over time.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And I should mention, you do not have to be a programmer to develop AI solutions. These days, there are so many what we call auto ML solutions where you can just define the problem, label the data, and then the infrastructure is there to help you develop and deploy the solution. You don't have to program at all. However, you do need a basic understanding of how the machine learning happens, that you need data and it needs to be labeled and it needs to be clearly labeled, because otherwise nothing good is going to come out. So Google has an AutoML solution, Amazon has an AutoML solution. There's this wonderful company that we've been talking with, Dataiku. They have a really phenomenal no-code AutoML solution. There are a lot of these.
I'll jump back in again. Just curious if you had a recommendation with regards to folks interested in AI or wanting to learn more. Do you have a particular favorite or a recently read journal or piece of literature that's kind of, you know, not just the 101, but a little bit of that practical guide? Mm-hmm. Recommendations on literature around AI? Yeah,
sure. So when I give this talk to Colby faculty and students, there's a whole set of slides that aren't in here about books and scientific papers about how AI is used in medicine, AI is used in history, AI is used in anthropology, AI is used in art, AI is used in music, economics, and so on and so forth. For business audiences, I would sort of break it down in a couple different ways. If you are a product manager or a company executive and you want to understand and be an informed AI user, there's actually a very short 4-segment course on Coursera by Andrew Ng. Andrew, and his last name is NG, Andrew Ng. I went through it this fall to make sure I could still recommend it. It's a really good introduction for product managers. It's nice and short. If you are a scientist or a technologist, then I have a lot more recommendations. If you're a programmer and you just want to get started, fast.ai is a really great hands-on introduction to AI for programmers. If you want to understand what's really going on in the machine learning much more deeply. There's a course that was developed and open sourced from Bloomberg, where I used to work, and my great colleague David Rosenberg taught it. It's Foundations of Machine Learning. It's a mathematically oriented introduction to machine learning, and it's very, that is not a short intro. That is a mathematically intense semester-long graduate level course, but it's freely available online. And then, oh yeah, and then Data IQ Academic has some really great lectures. And I'm looking into other options from LinkedIn Learning, Databricks, and so on. But those are some of the things I would recommend.
Awesome, thank you.
Hey, Amanda, this is Josh Carson's work for CGI. A great presentation, by the way. I love what you said about, just bringing this type of skill sets and bringing this AI to the Waterville area. I think I've always long thought about Waterville and Augusta making it the IT corridor for the state of Maine. And we have a IT center in Waterville where we're actually partnering with our emerging technologies practice to build a couple capabilities that involve AI, machine learning, and some RPA as well. So thank you again for the presentation, and we'll definitely be in contact with you to learn more about the Davis Institute.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, since I came to Maine, in New York City and in Silicon Valley, people are all over the moon about AI and humans. So AI for hiring, and AI in your home, and AI for chatbots, and that has so many challenges because humans are complicated, and we do then have to think about matters of bias and so on. I came to Maine, and one of the first conversations I had was with a student who did an internship at IDEX last summer. And I asked him to tell me, it was an AI related internship. And he said, we're using computer vision to figure out how to diagnose broken bones in dogs. And I thought, I had an epiphany, because I realized that there is no HIPAA for dogs. And also, I personally do not care about the privacy of dogs. And I bet they don't care either. And we can use machine learning and AI technologies for so many things: forestry, fisheries, agriculture, dogs, veterinary sciences, so many things where the challenges are so much less. The social challenges and the philosophical and ethical challenges are so much less, and we could really make a difference. So, like the person who was asking about protein folding and SETI, I think that focusing, and those things are really important to Maine. Aquaculture is really important to Maine. Forestry and climate change, really important to Maine. IDEX has 30% of the world's market share in veterinary technology. I mean, that's insane. We could definitely do a lot in Maine to lead, and it will be a different kind of leadership in AI, focusing on problems that really matter and where the challenges are minimized. So I am super excited. I will just mention, somebody asked about books. If you're interested in a more critical perspective on AI, I can recommend a couple of books. There's The Atlas of AI by Kate Crawford that came out earlier this year. This year has actually been a banner year for interesting books about AI. And then there's a maybe a year and a half old now documentary called Coded Bias from the Algorithmic Justice League, which is well worth watching.
Well, just pausing here for a moment, but again, Amanda, welcome. We're so thrilled to have you and your team and these perspectives now in our economy and the impact and the conditions it can create for both change and growth. So just so exciting. What a wonderful presentation and what another continued incredible asset for the community. So with that said, thank you for folks that are joining us at home. And please let us know if you have any other questions for Amanda or on our network Tech Talks. So Sabrina, can you send us away?
Happy to do so. Amanda, thank you for your incredible presentation and giving us a peek into what the Davis Institute is going to do in Waterville and how it's going to change the future of the region. So I'm really looking forward to that continued success.
Thanks.
Next month, CMDC will be featuring Trevor Ruggiero, founder of Luma, integrating design and critical component manufacturing services for life science applications, on Thursday, January 13th at noon. And for more information regarding our upcoming Tech Talks and to find recordings of our Tech Talks, please visit our website at centralmaine.org and click on our Tech Night tab. Thank you everyone for joining us today, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and week.